Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Ecotech. Okay, so on today's episode of Ecotech, we're going to talk about the shutdown of the 3G network in 2022. Now, I don't know if you've ever lived through one of these networks shutting down, but it's pretty much a similar process. And if you've never lived through one of these networks shutting down, well then stay tuned, because we're going to get into the really important questions that you actually might have regarding the shutdown of the 3G network. And one of the first questions that we'll get into is, what is the 3G network exactly? Well, the 3G network is a third generation of wireless mobile telecommunications technology. This technology actually started to become more widely used between 2001 and 2002. Further development of the 3G network actually coined the term mobile broadband. And this is just because internet on the go, like having internet when you're not at home on you all the time, actually started to become a reality. Now let's talk about why the network is actually shutting down. Each carrier has a limited ability to expand. In order for them to expand, they have to get rid of older technology so that they can use their existing infrastructure for improving existing technology and making and developing newer technologies. Now, to understand why the networks are actually shutting down a little bit more, we have to go into the actual infrastructure of these networks. Now, when these networks were built, they were actually made quite similar to each other. So the 2G network and the 3G network are very similar when it comes to infrastructure. 3G uses some of 2G's infrastructure, as 4G uses some of 3G's infrastructure. 5G, believe it or not, actually does use some of 4G's infrastructure. So it's kind of like building them on top of each other. So with the exception of 5G standalone, all of these networks are built on existing infrastructures. By shutting down 3G, they'll open up the ability to add additional space needed to expand. Now we'll talk about how this will affect you as a consumer. If you currently have a 3G device, that device will no longer be connected to the network. And this includes text messages, internet access, phone calls. And when I say phone calls, I do mean 911 as well. It will have no network access whatsoever. And this is why it's really important to understand and know about these changes that happen. Because when these technologies are created, so many things are created to work with them, and so many things are created to communicate back and forth with them. And so when one of these things are shutting down, then we have to adapt and we have to adjust to what's actually happening. And so what will happen here, for example, like a 3G iPhone, when the 3G network shuts down, phones like that will no longer have access to the network. Someone who actually owns a 3G device or 3G devices, you just need to know that you will no longer be able to use them to communicate on the actual network itself. Wi-Fi is a completely different standard, and it's completely separate from the actual network that carriers provide. So just know that no communication via the network. So that little 3G symbol you might see in the top right corner of your device, you will no longer see that. You'll more than likely not see any signal bars, just simply because the network won't be there. So the next thing we'll get into is, what are your options? So you might be thinking, okay, so I currently have a 3G device. It still works, and this rumor is now going around that 3G is shutting down this year. So what am I supposed to do? Well, I'm going to tell you, if you have a basic device, the number one thing that you're going to want to do is to upgrade. You really have no other option if you want a device that communicates over the network. And by that, I mean makes phone calls, text messages, and calls 911, has internet access. These are things that you will need a working network in order to accomplish. So you don't have to upgrade your phone to the newest piece of technology that we have out there. Currently, we have 5G phones, and I would have to say that is the newest cutting edge in technology. You really don't have to go to the most expensive option. It's just, if you are going to upgrade and you're going to upgrade one level above 3G, which is 4G, it's important for you to note that you will have to get a device that has the feature voice over LTE. If you fail to get a device that has that feature, the voice over LTE, then it's very possible that when the 3G network does shut down, that your device will also be affected. Now, another option that you have if you have a 3G device, and I'm just speaking from a what would you do with the device kind of perspective now, because of course my first answer to the question of what you need to do if you currently own a 3G device is, well, you should probably upgrade, because if you're looking to have connectivity, then that's something that you'll want to do. Now, if you're in the situation where you've already made an upgrade, but you still have 3G devices, another suggestion would be to repurpose them. So let's say you have a 3G tablet and the highest network capability it's capable of is connecting to the 3G network. Well, we know that that will be phased out. And one of the ways that you can repurpose this is you can just change the way that you utilize it. Maybe you won't always be able to connect as easy because you don't have a standalone network connection to it. Using Wi-Fi, you can get very creative with this, and that kind of changes things a little bit. So you can repurpose it in many ways. One of the ways I always suggest to repurpose an older tablet is kind of like a picture frame. I think that that's a genius way to get some usage out of something that you probably wouldn't have any use for. Another way that you can use it is for your kids and their games and keeping them entertained. If repurposing it doesn't sound as appealing, you can also sell it. This is definitely one really good way to get rid of technology and to also put a few extra bucks in your pocket. And if you're feeling adventurous, the last suggestion that I have would be restoration. Many of these things you can restore into a different thing altogether. There are plenty of devices that I've seen updated and all kinds of modifications made to them. So restoration, you can turn it into some kind of project of yours, and this can just give you something to do overall. So now we'll get into how this will all come about. Many things use these networks to operate. And so when they're shutting down the networks, they have to make sure that the other things that are running on these networks are not interrupted, kind of like a gradual switchover. When the 3G network is shutting down, it will become something that's more widely talked about. This isn't going to be something that happens overnight. And so I wouldn't worry about not knowing exactly when it's going to shut down, because of course you can think about the ramifications that would come from completely just shutting down a network without notifying any consumers that are actually utilizing that network. You should also receive service messages if you are currently using a 3G capable device. I will say that like most newer devices are all 3G capable as well as capable to connect to 4G and 5G. But the reality is, if you are using a 3G mobile device and that is the highest version of technology, they usually will send you out messages, and they will send you out some kind of, it's a free service message. So whether your phone is activated or not, you should be able to receive a service message saying that, you know, this network is ending, it's shutting down soon. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. You will definitely be notified, and it will be more widely publicized. And the last thing that I'm going to end on is to say, if you want to future-proof your device or future-proof things, then you can also choose to go to the latest and newest technology. The 5G network is currently our newest development in technology. You could get a device that works on the 5G network, and then you can pretty much avoid having to worry about the 3G network shutdown and also the 4G network shutdown. All right, guys, I really hope you were able to take something away from that today. Remember, these networks are a big deal, and this is one of the major reasons that I thought of bringing it to attention that the 3G network would be shutting down. So that does it for this episode of Ecotech, and I'll see you guys in the next one.